The Geelong offer for Charlie Curnow that broke yesterday. I guess I'll just ask firstly, have they put forth 3 first-round draft picks in a proposal to you for Charlie Curnow?
Look, I think importantly, the club's position has been that we don't want Charlie to be leaving Carlton, and so from that standpoint, that's the first thing that we should all be aware of here. I think the second part of this conversation is understanding what 3 first-round picks might actually look like, and for Geelong, those 3 picks are effectively going to be picks in the 20s. So if that's what the offer ends up being, notwithstanding the fact that we don't want Charlie to go no matter what, I'm not sure anyone would think that that's a reasonable deal for who Charlie Curnow is.
Probably none bigger yesterday than the confirmation that Clayton Oliver wants to play for you. This was a swift swoop, I guess. In the space of 6 or 7 days, it went from Clayton Oliver being a Melbourne footballer to wanting to be a Giants player. From your perspective, how did it play out, and how satisfying is it that he wants to be wearing your Guernsey next year?
Yeah, firstly, Tom, it's really satisfying for us in the footy club that Clayton wants to play with us, obviously, next year and beyond. Obviously, now we'll get to work with Tim Lamb and Melbourne around what a trade would look like. But, I just think it shows just, I suppose, clubs now and how agile and nimble you have to be in this period, because obviously there's plenty of players you like, but there's a lot you're just are never going to get near. And obviously a meeting occurred last Thursday, which was called for Clayton and Nick Geese and his manager to go into Melbourne. And what transpired there, the goalposts changed completely. So I think there was a few phone calls made from a few clubs, but we obviously got on the front foot there too. And we're just unbelievably fortunate in one facet that Clayton, for whatever reason, 3 days before, had decided to come to Sydney for a week. So when I was talking to Nick Geese, and Nick actually said he's on a plane to Sydney now. So I sort of reached out, not expecting to get a response because of what had transpired. And Clayton was pretty swift to come back to us and was happy to meet the next day, which we had a Kevin Shirty medal best and fairest night that night. So we're swiftly trying to pull things together for a meeting on Friday, which has been well publicised, some of the photos. So, and it just went from there.
Obviously, Clayton Oliver's a great story for the Giants, but what's happened to Leek Aleer? Can you take us through how you found out and how the club feels, and then how Leek feels, and whether you've spoken to Leek about how that's all gone down?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of things with that. First, I'd just like to get on the record that this wasn't a difficult trade negotiation. That's absolutely fact. The other thing, though, we're not privy to what other clubs' strategies and how they're going to operate through this period. So I'm loath to make comment on what other clubs are doing. But what I will say is Leek is shattered. He's incredibly disappointed. Both Adam Kingsley and myself spoke with him yesterday afternoon. He's in Barcelona. He loves our footy club. He was in tears at his exit interview. The reason for leaving was great opportunity, as you mentioned earlier, to play regular football, because at the moment he's developing nicely. But we've just got a couple of really A-grade defenders ahead of him.
A+.
And there was financial, it was obviously a good offer. We're not privy to what it was, but the speculation around it. So as hard as it was, he made the decision to leave, and that had been something that we'd sort of factored in for a long way out, because I think there was discussions with Leek the year before when he was in contract with St Kilda, which he stayed and he wanted to see it through, loyal to the Giants. So he's incredibly disappointed. He's on the other side of the world. There's a contract there with us. We've obviously had to go back and revisit that, because since our chats with Leek and his manager earlier in the year, and you sort of read the tea leaves that this is probably looking unlikely. We've recontracted 16 players this year, 10 of which weren't due to be out of contract at the end of next year, which says a lot about the footy club and where we're going. And Toby McMullen was one that recommitted yesterday, which is great. So he wasn't out to the end of next year. So there's a salary cap, and you've got to juggle around that. So Leek is more than welcome to be playing at the Giants next year, and there's something there. But he's in shock at the moment. So our thoughts are more about, with him. What happened yesterday, we don't know what exactly has gone down, but it doesn't impact us. It's not like we had that pick lined up for anything else. Our concern and care is with the individual, and that's Leek.
So if you were going to give up Leek Aleer, it was reported that you wanted a future second rounder back, and they couldn't find that future second rounder. Is that accurate?
The one thing I'll say, a second round was part of it. But, you know, you can trade 2 years into the future too now. There's plenty of mechanisms. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Another one of your 2-time premiership stars who's looking elsewhere is Ah Chee. We know there's significant interest from Adelaide. Have you made any progress with the negotiations there?
No, look, that's slow going. The situation with Cal is sort of not one of our choosing. Our aim has always been to retain Cal. We've had a sequence of strong offers throughout the year. He's been a great player for us, significantly playing a variety of important roles in big finals, not just grand finals. I think he polled Norm Smith medal votes, which is something he can always be proud of. He loved his time at the Lions, and we've loved having him. But look, I'm not going to publicly sort of try and negotiate Cal's contract through the media. We'll have our conversations with Adelaide around that, and we'll see whether they can produce something that's compelling for us.
Now, you were asked about Zack Bailey on Monday, and you gave a great Clint Eastwood quote. I won't ask you to back over it, but I'm sure everyone's heard it that tunes into Trade Radio. He's going to be a name that he's talked about all year next year until he signals his intentions. It's an interesting case because grew up in Darwin, went to boarding school in Adelaide. These conversations, I'm sure, are ongoing with Tom McConville and the Max Sports crew. Has there been much progress from a Brisbane perspective around an extension?
Oh, absolutely priority for us to sign and extend Zack Bailey. There's no question about that. We have had some discussions. We did agree that the best time for these discussions would be in the off-season. That's what we've traditionally done, I think, the last 2 extensions that Zack's done. So we'll get through the trade period, and that will be job number 1 to sit down again with the guys from Max Sports and note out what that looks like.
Got to ask you about Bobby Hill, because I'm sure, as you can appreciate, Trade Radio, the text machine, SCN, the talkback radio, he's been a huge topic for months around his selection, September. But there's been noise around other clubs coming for him. Can you just put Collingwood supporters at ease? He's not going to be a name that bobs up between now and 7:30pm next Wednesday night.
No, definitely not. He'll be a Collingwood player next year for sure. It took us all by surprise, to be honest, when that was reported. It hasn't come from us. It hasn't come from Bobby, and it hasn't come from the club. You know, we're all pretty aligned with wanting to get Bobby back out there and playing his best footy next year at the Pies. He loves the club. The club loves him. We love him at the Pies. So there was really no angle that you could come at this with other than he's going to be there next year.
There you go, Collingwood supporters. Couldn't be more definitive.
That was a major move on Thursday afternoon. That had come after the Cats had tabled pick 19 on Monday, on the opening day of the trade period for Rowan Marshall, but with no movement there on that deal. And we heard Carl Delina on our show yesterday be pretty firm that Rowan Marshall was a required player and that Ross Lyon wanted to keep him. And that has been reiterated to Rowan Marshall as well, that they want to keep him and will be keeping him. So with that in mind, obviously Geelong's then gone and made the big play for Charlie Curnow, which was the first official bid and trade offer for the Superstar Blue.
I think the thing with the offer that we probably need to keep in mind, and we heard from Chris Davies on Trade Radio this morning saying that they didn't believe it was a reasonable offer for Charlie Curnow, but I think this is not only going to be the case this year, but it's going to be the case clearly next year and then the year after as well. 2027 picks will be... So this year, if you finished 4th on the ladder, the 2020 pick, a pick before free agency compensation, before academy bids, before father-son bids, would have been pick 15. In 2027, before free agency, before father-son, before compensation, it'd be pick 22 if you finish in the top 4. So the lowest you can be before anything is even inserted into that draft order is pick 22 if you finish inside the top 4, which you'd imagine Geelong would do, given they always do that.
Yeah, that's right. They do always do that, and that's it's as good a hand as you can offer without offering up a player.
Can they offer more?
How?
Well, that's the question. Like, is that their best offer on the table right now?
I don't know. It's the first offer on the table, and what it's done now is it's shaken the tree, and the bidding war will erupt now, and there's been meandering and posturing, and that's generally what happens in the trade space. But Charlie Curnow did a medical with the Cats this week. He's recently done a medical with Sydney as well. So he has had his eyes on Geelong as the destination, but Sydney throughout. Even if Sydney offered the same deal that Geelong did last night, their offer would be better because pick 19 is automatically better than or pick 11 is better than 9.
Jamarra Ugle-Hagan looks like he's set to get to Gold Coast. How does that happen from here?
Oh, look, the set two is the interesting part. We haven't received any form of trade request from Jamarra as yet. And until that happens, any speculation around how or the mechanics of it is purely that. So we'll wait. We've obviously seen him head up to the Gold Coast, and for his sake, hopefully there's an opportunity there for him to further his career.
When do you expect that to occur, the trade request?
That's really not something that we can anticipate at this stage, Riley. Obviously, Gold Coast have got a process that they're going through, so have Jamarra, so have his camp, and we're sort of on the tail end of that. So, yeah, obviously the sooner the better in terms of getting into it, but we're sitting and waiting.
Buku Khamis has requested a trade to Carlton. What would you be looking at in return for a player of Buku's ability?
Oh, look, we've had initial talks with Carlton, and again, it's not something that there's much value in commenting on publicly, but Buku is a contracted player with the Western Bulldogs who provides us depth in an area of the ground where we clearly need it, and we want to preserve our depth. So for Buku to leave, it's going to have to be a pick that reflects his value not only in the marketplace as a contracted player, but to us specifically as a club that has ambitions next year and needs and values his services, as well as the fact that he's a product of our NGA and a much-loved member of our footy club who we tried to re-sign pretty aggressively in the middle of the year.
I know you just mentioned the key defenders and basically putting a line through going anywhere else, but just for the sake of clarity, Leek Aleer is a name that has been raised a lot over the last couple of days, and including links to clubs that need or have looked at previous key defenders. Are you any chance with him, or is that just not an area that you're going to go now?
Oh, the first thing I'd say about Leek is that there's just a tremendous amount of empathy from us towards Leek for what he's had to confront in the last 24 hours for him as a professional athlete. For us, it's not an area. It's not something that we would be pursuing at this time.
Let's start with Ah Chee. He's requested a trade to the Crows. Where do things sit with his deal at the moment?
Yeah, that's a work in progress, guys. Obviously, we've had early dialogue with Dom and Brisbane, and Cal and Ben Williams, his manager, made it really clear that Cal's keen to get to the Adelaide Football Club. So that's something we'll continue to work through.
So earlier in the week when we spoke on the opening day of trade period, Justin, you said that your first pick this year was off the table. Does that stance still remain? And if so, is that the same view that's applied to a future first-round pick?
Yeah, we've been pretty consistent with that. Dom and I have had those conversations without going into too much detail, but obviously we value Cal highly, and so do Brisbane, and that's something we just need to work through. But obviously our pick 16 or future one is probably not something that's going to be part of that discussion. There's probably a recognition that after 1648 might be a bit too far back. So have you offered your future second-round pick for him? Yeah, our future two's been on the table from the early days, so that's something that's been sitting there.
So, yeah, the Omar Insurance text line is almost broken by the amount of people wondering if North have an interest in Leek Aleer after the last 24 hours. Is it a chance for Leek Aleer to be on the radar for the Roos?
Yeah, well, it's one that's obviously caught a fair few clubs by surprise. We've followed We've followed Leek since he played at Central Districts, obviously in the sample, and followed his career at the Giants, and we've always admired him as a player. But given he was committed to St Kilda, we hadn't really thought too much of it. So now that that's changed, I'm sure there's a few clubs that are probably considering him.
Can you just take us, Brady, through how that actually happens within your football club when that announcement goes out yesterday afternoon? Do you get straight on the phone to somebody? Does somebody call you? Do you hastily put together a meeting, or how does it kind of work? Because it is a weird situation, only 6 days out from deadline day. Is it an urgency in a conversation to see if you are interested in a player in this situation?
Yeah, well, you always have discussions about these types of players throughout the year.
Yep.
So we've already got a pretty good understanding of, as a group, where we see players and what sort of level of interest we could possibly have. So nothing's new in that regard. The new part is that he's now not getting a trade to the club he nominated. So that's the biggest change, obviously. And, going into trade period, you're normally pretty well prepared with who you were going after, and you've probably already got commitments from those players. But you also need to be able to pivot in trade week, and this is a potential case of a pivot for probably a couple of clubs.
Have you spoken to his manager?
I have, yeah. I've been in touch with his manager about a few things. So, no doubt he's pretty disappointed, the manager, that he's had something teed up and now it's no longer there. So he's clearly trying to find Leek a new home, or whether he stays at the Giants. So, I did answer his phone.
Jai Simpkin, what's the latest there? Anything happening? I know you were pretty adamant when you had that meet and greet on Monday that nothing was going to happen there. Has there been any interest elsewhere? I believe Collingwood have shown some interest.
Yeah, there's been some interest shown. He's obviously a very good player, so that's no surprise when he's, been open to wanting to go and have a bit of a look and see if there is anything out there. So there has been some interest, but there's been no trade request. There's been no formal offer or anything like that in terms of the trade. So the way we see it, while it's still in that position, he's a North Melbourne player and will continue to be.
Despite this effort by the Cats to get involved yesterday meaningfully and deliberately meaningfully, the Swans in front, in fact, I'd say significantly in front on it.
The Swans seem more prepared at this stage to offer up players.
Yes.
So that's why they're edging in front at the minute.
And again, it's who you speak to and who you want to rely on. And I just keep hearing the name Will Hayward when it comes to this possibility around it. And we know that he has, not for the first time, had his name in a trade week period. We know that he's stayed every single time. But yeah, there's certainly other football clubs I've spoken to today who are across these matters, probably more than even the media at times. And a couple of clubs I've spoken to feel that it will be a Will Hayward player from the Swans when it comes to this. And the possibility of 2 first-rounders and Will Hayward has been at least bandied and thrown back to me today as a possibility on this. And 2 first-rounders from the Swans probably appeals more, and Will Hayward, than 3 first-rounders from the Cats. But they'll probably have to do more than all of that.
But if you're Will Hayward and you're sitting in his shoes and what the Blues have done today and Ben Ainsworth coming in, you sort of sit there going, okay, well, I'm going to have better players around me in the role that I'm playing. I know Durden's departed, but that makes potentially your decision as a player a little bit more comfortable. If you have that, you're walking into a team, into a forward line that will have a bit more class associated with it.
So to try and put the respective offers on the table from Sydney and from Geelong and Sydney, we know what Geelong's are, 3 first-round picks, and we can extrapolate them out to rough numbers and where they'll land if Geelong perform as we expect. But Sydney's offer would only be considered marginally better. Is that fair? So 11, their future first next year, add Charlie Curnow to that team. You'd expect them to be a finals team.
And
then Hayward.
A player, which could be Hayward, yeah. James Rowbottom's name's constantly coming up. He relatively recently signed a fresh deal to stay with the Swans, but I'll keep going back to what Brian Taylor volunteered on grand final day on Triple M, and it was weird the way he did it. He just put his name out there without actually saying it. But given the family relationship or the family dynamic he's got with James Rowbottom, that's who he was referring to. And that hasn't gone away, the talk about around all of that and the possibilities attached to it. So, yeah, that's where that. Brody, thank you for your time. And how does it feel now that it's official and you are a Demon?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's definitely weird. Sort of thinking my whole footy journey, it's hasn't been an easy road, and never would have thought at 32 I'd be getting another opportunity to explore new things and see what the D's are going to be like, and it's exciting, and change is very hard sometimes, but yeah, I know it was the right move for me, and yeah, I already had a lot of support and people reach out from the D's. They've made me feel welcome already. So yeah, can't wait to get started, and yeah, it's good that it's all gone through.
What is it you're able to tell us today, and by extension our listeners, most importantly our listeners, on what's happening with the pursuit of Charlie Curnow and Rowan Marshall?
Yeah, not much to be honest. Today, we obviously did that, put forward a deal to Carlton yesterday afternoon, and that got knocked back this morning. Nick Austin text back, so not much there, Damo. I haven't spoken to them since. And as far as Rowan Marshall goes, we had that first round draft pick on the table there Monday. I had a chat to Sauce and Gubby about that, offered it up, and not much happened. Then I gave Sauce a call yesterday. We actually caught up with Carlton for lunch yesterday, which was good. It's good to have a chat about trying to see what can happen in a trade for Charlie. So on the way home from that chat, from that lunch, caught up with Sauce on the phone, had a chat, see where it was at and if they're willing to do a deal. And yeah, he said it's less likely, and they wanted to keep Rowan. So later that afternoon, put our energy to Charlie and offered up the picks that we did.
Okay. I mean, you've now waded your way through a lot of these periods of time, and you have these conversations that you've just relayed to us now. You know that sometimes the next time you pick up the phone, there's a different response. Do you expect that to be the case with both these players? And I'll maybe just for the moment, isolate the conversation on Rowan Marshall. So do you go again with that pursuit?
Yeah, we've never been out of the pursuit. It's just what a deal would look like. So clearly we had that pick 19 on the table for those 4 days. We want to bring Rowan in. It's just what a deal would look like. So given that we did do the offer to Carlton, we're not exactly sure what the Saints might want a deal would look like for them, but willing to have that conversation.
Okay. I would have thought 19s get you in the conversation quite seriously with the Saints, but they're clearly wanting more than that.
Yeah, they weren't that clear, to be honest, on what it was. But, yeah, like I said a couple of weeks ago, we're going to have a crack at trying to bring both of them in. First up, went to the Saints out of respect to Rowan, saying that he wanted to come to Geelong and try to get a deal done there in good faith. Obviously, that hasn't happened to this stage, but at the same time, wanted to throw a hat in the ring for Charlie and thought, you know, it was the best offer that we could do. They're our 3 first-round picks. Yeah, we couldn't do any more, really. So, yeah, unfortunately, it got knocked back. But here we are with those picks. And from our end, we've always been a lover of the draft too. So if it means getting to the draft with those picks a couple of years before Tasmania comes in, we're excited about that too. So there's lots of ways you can try and improve your list. And, you know, we're pretty excited with some organic growth that we've got with the demographic of our list.
Andrew, Jono and JJ will get some questions in a moment. I'll just ask one more before I hand over to them. The player component to these potential trades. Brian Myers is a name that just constantly comes up. I know it's not coming up from the Geelong Footy Club putting his name out there, but it is from other clubs, and maybe even Carlton is very interested potentially on how that could look. What's your situation and stance on that? Could there be, between now and Wednesday, a player involved in either the Rowan Marshall or Charlie Curnow pursuit?
I don't think so, Dame. We haven't had a player come to us and ask to be traded. And someone like Ryan and others, we just love a part of our team. Obviously, you know, there's some stuff that we did well throughout the year, fell short, but there's a lot to like. And, you know, a player like Ryan's bloody important to that. So, yeah, I haven't heard in our conversations clubs wanting our players, but I get the speculation out there.